Well, I think we'll get started now. Um, Welcome to a special session of the Solid Waste Task Force meeting. And thank you all for being here. I am Craig Strong, Chair of the Task Force meeting. And we have a little bit of business to take care of with our regular task force. Before we get into the meat of our meeting, this special meeting is an outcome of State Bill 1383. The bill is intended to direct municipalities to reduce or eliminate organic waste going into landfills where such waste breaks down anaerobically to methane gas, a potent greenhouse gas. We're going to hear a lot more about 1383 and how we are addressing this law from Solid Waste Management Authority Director Ted Ward. But first on our agenda is opening up for public comment. And if you have comments or concerns about the subject of the meeting, organic waste, please hold on to those because you will have ample opportunity for your input later. Are there any other public comments to be made to the task force? Hearing none, we will move on to the minutes of our 13 January meeting of the task force. This is for the task force members. Do we have any modifications or corrections or a motion to approve the minutes?
Chair Strong, I'd like to complete the sentence under item 2 where it says it's reporting what Koya Tuttle reported about the Yurok tribe's installation of 3 anaerobic digesters, including 2 servicing their upriver communities. These devices are made in Holland, cost about $138,000 per unit, and all units together can process about 350 pounds of food per day in total, is what that sentence was intended to read. So I'd like to add that.
So that is a correction to the minutes.
Yeah.
So I make a motion to accept the corrected version of the minutes.
Second. Favor? Aye.
And Joel Wallen is a member of the task force, and he's online, so we need to find a way to record his vote as well.
If you guys can hear me, that's an aye from me also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other task force member who's online?
Okay, well, this meeting is going to be conducted largely by our contractors of the Del Norte Food Council, Aya Mahan and Drea Langto. And they will be coordinating the meeting and guiding discussion from here on. So take it away.
Thank you so much, Craig. Again, my name is Aya Mahan, and I work with the Del Norte and Tribal Lands Community Food Council. This is Andrea Langto, and we were super excited to be able to be a part of this process. We also facilitate a community food council, of which in the last several years, we have had several people interested in composting facilities, composting programs, and really excited and grateful for the Del Norte Solid Waste Task Force, as well as the Del Norte Solid Waste Authority, to be conducting this planning and looking forward to the future. So as Craig mentioned, this is the first of 6 community meetings that we'll be hosting with the Del Norte Solid Waste Task Force. The goal is to understand our community needs for food rescue and composting, to explore different program options for managing organic waste, and to create a plan to meet the SB 1383 waste reduction goals. These meetings are really to hear from you as our community. So thank you so much for being here today. We hope that we have an engaging meeting set up for you where you'll really be able to share your input. And the goal of these meetings is to have a comprehensive report that will guide the future of waste reduction programs in Del Norte County. So there are some agendas in the back of the room if you'd like a paper copy. And then we also have a few handouts that Pat has. So if maybe you put your hand up, she can bring a handout to you. But I did want to do just a quick overview of what we'll be doing today. We will get to know you. So we are going to ask you to come and introduce yourself in the podium for a brief introduction. We'll also hear from the Waste Authority Director Ward to provide an overview of SB 1383, the laws, regulations, and then our community goals as well. We'll have some facilitated discussion where we hear from you on what is the community and stakeholder goals and where are our needs and what are our assets and challenges. And we will break into small groups and do an activity, a SWOT analysis, looking at our strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. And we'll follow up with these meeting outcomes and then what the next few meetings are going to look like as well. And we'll adjourn at 5 o'clock.
So in the handouts that you're getting, this graphic is there, and it's just a brief overview of this process. So we're in phase 1 right now at the community kickoff meeting. Between January and March, maybe April, we'll have a second community meeting, and we're hoping to also create subcommittees based on interest in the community. In phase 2 is where we're really going to get deep into developing facility and program planning. And we're going to refine our priorities. We're going to discuss cost, feasibility, timeline, permitting. In phase 3, September to December, those 2 meetings will really be making decisions about what programs and facilities we want to move forward with. And in meeting 6, we'll have a draft report of what we're thinking the community has decided on, and this will be an opportunity for you to give feedback, for us to do further clarification. And then January through April, we'll be developing a final report that hopefully will be adopted by the Solid Waste Task Force and Del Norte Waste Authority and Board of Supervisors. And it'll basically set our goals for how we want to transition to meet SB 1383 from 2026 to 2040.
So we wanted to get to know who is in the room. So we will start with introductions from our task force, and then we will ask the community to come up to the podium and just share a brief introduction of your name and organization or community. But we'll start with the task force.
Hi, my name is Koya Tuttle. I'm the Pollution Prevention Manager for the Yurok Tribe.
And you know me, Craig Strong, Chair of the Task Force.
And my name is Kira Seymour. I'm the Assistant Director at Del Norte Solid Waste Management and a member of the task force.
John Perry, Recology Del Norte General Manager and member of the task force.
Chandra Ordway, I'm the Waste Zero Specialist at Recology Del Norte and a member of the task force.
And Joel, can you introduce yourself online?
Yes, Joel Wallen. I'm with Hambro Waste Solutions Group. We operate the transfer station for the authority. I've been involved in solid waste about 20 years. Operated compost facilities, so got a little bit of experience in the area.
Thank you so much for those introductions. And I'd just like to welcome each of you to the podium for a brief hello. I really want to express how appreciative I am of your taking the time out of your day to show up. Our pledge to you is to try to make every effort to make these meetings as productive and meaningful and useful as possible. We do not want to waste your time. We'll be talking about a couple ways that we're planning to do that. But currently, please tell us who you are, who you're affiliated with, one at a time. Welcome. Just step up to the podium and say hey.
Hello, I'm Angela Gray. I work for the Donato Community Food Council, and I run our food forest programs and manage our food forest currently. So I'm very excited about this community composting program. Yay!
Excellent.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elena Cisneros. I'm the Habitat and Wildlife Division Manager with Talawadeni Nation. It's good to see everyone. I was previously on the Solid Waste Task Force as well, so I miss you all. But
Don't be shy.
Hello, I'm Tira Nations, and I am the Mobile Distribution Manager for the Family Resource Center of the Redwoods Food Bank.
And in an effort to try to save time, since you're all going to be expected to do this, please form a line on either side so we're minimizing time.
Hello, I'm Marina McNeil, and I'm the Food Bank Director for the Family Resource Center.
Pamela Lee. I'm with the California Department of Food and Ag with the Farm to School program.
Hi, I'm Connie Evans, and I'm trying to start a ranch in this area, well, a farm. So I want to learn more about all this information.
Good afternoon. I'm Rob Jacob, the Operational Manager for Rumiano Cheese.
My name is Maria Longo. I am the Youth Coordinator with Tri-County Independent Living.
Hello, my name is Robert Israel. I'm the Production Manager at Rumiano Cheese.
Hi, Dora Burnell, Independent Living Specialist for Tri-County Independent Living.
Hello, Joe B. Rumiano with Rumiano Cheese.
Hi, Deborah Otenberg with Del Norte OAS.
I'm Alicia Williams. I'm an independent activist and community builder. I live over on Parkway, and I'm honored to own Redwoods. Not really own them.
I'm Stephanie Alexander, Alexander Family Farm, and we've been composting for 32 years at our farm and excited about the nutrients that this will offer our whole community.
Hi, my name is Melanie Cross, and I work with the school garden.
David Salmon from Fort Dick, former board member of the Food Council.
Hi, I'm Mia Wapner, and I am the Klamath Food Village Coordinator with the Yurok Food Sovereignty Program.
Kevin Malone, True North.
Julie Bjorkstrand, the Director of Nutrition Services for Del Norte Unified School District.
I'm Declan Ramsey Malone. I'm a soil food web consultant and composting expert.
Erica Terrens. I'm also with the Community Food Council.
Heather Pardue. I'm the Environmental Coordinator at Elk Valley Rancheria.
I'm Emily Christensen, and this is Devin Patton. We are with Del Norte Child Care Council and also new to the steering committee of the Food Council.
Hello, my name is Roman Worthy. I am the Food Sovereignty Program Coordinator at Tolowa Dani Nation.
Julie Jo Air Williams, Ocean Air Farms, and with the Food Council.
Hello, I'm Robert Ford, and I'm a Tribal Resource Specialist with Tolowa Dani.
I am Yoli Hod, owner of Blueberry Hill Farm and a long-time compost enthusiast.
Hello, Dar Caldwell, volunteer at various gardens and farms.
Hello, my name is Sunny Baker. I'm a program manager at Del Norte County Public Health and DHHS.
Hi, I'm Kevin Milieu, Elk Valley Rancheria Tribal Council member and Food Council board member.
Anybody else who has not stood up and said hello? Thank you so much.
We do have a few folks online.
Please.
Hi, I'm Valerie Sarkam with the Board of Supervisors, and I just want to say what an impressive lineup I've seen there today. Thank you all for showing up and showing interest in this important conversation.
Mary, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Mary Kiddo. I'm a contractor with Del Norte County, specifically with SB 1383 requirements.
Vanessa? I realize there's some note takers on here. How about Megan?
Hey there, I'm Megan Scott. I'm just a citizen here in Del Norte County. I'm really happy to see everybody there. And I am a huge gardener and composter, so I'm glad to see all this is happening.
Ben?
Hello, I'm Ben Wynn from the Yard Planning Department. I'm here to listen and learn more. Thanks.
And Paula?
Sorry, I was muted. Hi everyone, Paul Aubrey with the York Tribe Food Sovereignty Program. I'm the program manager.
Did anyone walk in late that would still like to introduce themselves? Putting you on the spot, Bridget.
Bridget Lacey, City of Crescent City.
And we have a late arrival to a task force. Go ahead, Stephen.
My name is Stephen Gibbs, and I'm a retired guy, and I'm a member of the task force and the Tolowa Dunes Steward.
Oh, well, thank you all so much for introducing yourselves. I feel very honored to be in this room with so much wisdom and expertise. And yeah, I'm really excited to start this process with you all. So thank you so much for being here. At this time, I would like to introduce Ted Ward, the director of the Del Norte Solid Waste Authority, and he is going to share an overview of SB 1383 and the goals for our community.
Excellent. Thank you, Aya. I'll try to breeze through this pretty quickly because SB 1383 calls for our community to do a variety of things above and beyond what we'll be discussing, but I did want you to understand that overview before we plowed in. So next slide, please. So that's the Del Norte County Transfer Station. We'll be talking about SB 1383, which is intended to reduce short-lived climate pollutants, particularly methane that's associated with the degradation of food and yard waste when they're placed in landfills. So essentially, this law calls for each community to change the way those materials are managed to not emit so potent greenhouse gases. Next slide, please. So we've already made, there are separate rules for rural jurisdictions, and we've already met some of those initial requirements, including food waste capacity planning, and we've started down the path of doing recycled paper procurement. And like I said, many of these roles go above and beyond what we'll be discussing, but we've already taken steps to support and expand the edible food recovery programs that are already here in Del Norte County. Next slide, please. So the rural jurisdiction responsibilities include quite a few things, including securing access to edible food recovery capacity. We've done that. We're supporting the edible food recovery programs. We've started some of the education and outreach to the community. We anticipate we'll do more of that, as well as expanding our procurement of recycled paper products. The law does require in urban communities for separated food waste collection to roll out across the state. So you may have friends and family in urban communities that are already starting to do that. Those requirements don't hit our rural community until the end of 2036. And they may be extended further out still. So I don't really anticipate we're going to be discussing many changes to our collection programs, at least initially. But also part of this is working with the local health department to monitor compliance and to conduct inspections. Next slide, please. So the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority is a joint powers authority of the City of Crescent City and the County of Del Norte. And so that's the agency that I work for. And the task force is an advisory group to them. So this law requires us to change the way we're managing organic materials, but the Solid Waste Authority is not the only entity making those decisions and making those changes. So this diagram shows all the different ways the City Council and Board of Supervisors have responsibilities under SB 1383 that go above and beyond what the Solid Waste Authority does. And the reason why I'm highlighting this is that SB 1383 is an unusual program in that it isn't taken care of by one agency. This has responsibilities that go both to the supervisors and the city council, and we support their programs and report on the programs, but we do not manage all of them. For example, when you're talking about procuring mulch and compost for the city parks or the county parks, we don't control those budgets as the Solid Waste Authority, so it's entirely appropriate that the city and the county retain those responsibilities. Next slide, please. So we have various reporting requirements. We've established an ordinance. Like I said, those grayed out portions of the programs are not immediately impacting us, but we do have all those other aspects: record keeping, reporting, education and outreach, edible food recovery, recycled paper procurement, commercial edible food recovery, and jurisdiction inspection and monitoring. Next slide, please. So this requires that different agencies of those departments make decisions, and so this shows the different entities that are responsible for the success of our edible food recovery program. And that's just one aspect of SB 1383. Next slide, please. So we've taken a bunch of actions already. Probably most of you have not paid attention to those. That's fine. But I would point out the OWR4 grant, which essentially is supporting this community planning process. Plus, we'll have some additional resources for implementation. Next slide. So why are we here? So our intent is that we want to improve community health and resiliency by developing programs and partnerships that minimize food waste and help residents, businesses, and agencies reduce food waste before it becomes waste, recover and redistribute edible food, safely direct surplus food to people and animals. We want to process organic materials responsibly by converting waste into compost, soil enhancers, and mulches. The overall intent is to reduce climate impact. So we want to implement these programs so we are reducing and preventing methane emissions and keeping organics out of the landfill to the extent that we can. And we want to implement these programs in a way that fosters reuse and sustainability to support long-term environmental and community benefit. Any questions about that point? That's why we're all here. Next slide, please. So let's look at some of the target materials. So these tonnages are from the Del Norte County Transfer Station in 2023. And so, I'm sorry, 2024. You can see most of what we have is brush and grass, but we also have logs and stumps, untreated wood. We have a separated yard debris bin at Gasky. We used to have one at Klamath, but we couldn't keep it clean. So those materials are going as part of the solid waste stream down at the Klamath transfer station. Christmas trees bring in a little bit more, thanks to Hambro WSG and to Recology for supporting those programs. We'll also be focused on edible food, food for animals to the extent that it's not appropriate for people. We'll be looking at meat products and wastes. There's already been discussion among the Hmong community of interest in developing a butchery. We're looking at paper products, including corrugated cardboard, opportunities for reuse and recycling. Textiles are also part of the organic materials, as many wool and cotton are certainly compostable. And then part of the discussion is also fire control debris. At various points, the Del Norte Fire Safe Council has been very interested in how to best manage materials that they're trying to cut down so that they become less of a fire hazard. So those are kind of the entirety of the target materials we're talking about. And different management options include, you may not know, but at the Del Norte County Transfer Station, you can come in and get untreated wood for no charge. So if you're interested in helping us out with those existing programs, that's great. Looking at yard debris and food waste, you have various kinds of composting approaches. Aerobic composting is generally windrows and involves a turning process. Anaerobic composting often is an in-vessel system that's enclosed, so that when the runs out of oxygen, it can continue its degradation process. community composting is the kind of thing you see in our community gardens out at the college and in front of the community health center. Those are excellent demonstrations, but they have not been fitted for receiving any significant amounts of materials from the general community. For edible food, of course, we're talking about food rescue and redistribution and how to support those systems and to coordinate them as best as possible. We also can talk about outreach regarding food waste reduction and approaches toward fermentation to make those food scraps be as useful as edible food for as long as possible. We can also talk about food for animals to the extent that that is a possibility. We talked briefly about the butchery. Recently found out that butchery and renderings are very closely associated in that if you have a significant amount of waste from a butchery, it actually needs to go directly to a rendering facility. We do not currently have a rendering facility that's reasonably close. For paper products, we can encourage reuse as well as expanded recycling. And for fire control debris, I'm open to that broad discussion, but certainly there's a lot of material there and we'd want to talk about that. So that's the overview of the target materials and some potential management options. Next slide, please. So part of this discussion is trying to come up with a process by which we decide what's our priority. This task force is trying to come up with a plan that they're then going to hand to Del Norte Solid Waste. Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority is comprised of 2 from the Board of Supervisors, 2 from the City Council, and 1 elected by the other 4. They are very conservative about how they spend community resources. So if we're talking about building a new facility that's going to cost several $1 million, take months and maybe even years of planning and development, we all need to buy into it. We all need to believe that's a good idea, and we need to follow through with that to actually bring the facility into operation. So part of this process is to help encourage the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority Board to have the confidence that this has been an inclusive community process, and we've received all your inputs to try to make sure that we're putting the best ideas forward and that the priorities that are set in that plan to the Solid Waste Authority are the priorities of our community. And you people who have showed up really count so much in my mind because you're doing the hard work and you're taking the extra time to try to make sure that we do the right thing by the community. So we can look at expanding food rescue and redistribution. We can look at establishing or contracting with composting facilities. An important rule of thumb for composting facilities, especially when people are thinking about municipal composting opportunities, is that generally if you've transported your raw materials or your finished compost more than 30 miles, you've spent all the profit you might have had from that compost. So consequently, that kind of limits what we can think about as a regional planning approach. Partnerships with Humboldt are going to be of limited value because there's only so far that we can transport those kinds of materials. But there still may be partnership opportunities that exist there. So we want to look at ways that we might be able to support and expand community gardening and compost outreach, maybe look at some distribution of bins. I like distribution of bins because if you can convince people to compost at home, that also reduces your collection requirement. There's the potential for enhanced coordination with the Yurok, with the Talawadini, with the Hmong, with the Hispanic community. All of those partnerships are really important, and we really want to make sure that, especially as I know that the tribes are looking at rolling out additional programs focused on organics and food sovereignty, and we want to make sure that our programs are as complementary to each other and as compatible as possible. So we might want to also establish different ways of promoting how we manage food scraps. There have been discussions about potential facilities. There's the potential for a northern transfer station that would be a transfer station that could have additional functions associated with it. Currently, the northern part of the county, Fort Dick, Smith River, don't really have a transfer station that's very accessible to them. The transfer stations in Gasky and Klamath all lose money. So it's important to put that as part of the context. We could build another northern transfer station. It could have a lot of community benefits, but it would probably also be an ongoing cost. We do have property next to the Del Norte County Transfer Station for a resource recovery park. So that's 2.5 acres we might be able to use towards one of these functions. Local butchery has been discussed in a preliminary basis. So that could be part of our larger discussion of meat management and rendering. We'll also have to look at the things on the right side, monitoring and enforcement, the procurement requirements. There is always the possibility for expanded collections opportunities, whether that be an actual collection or a servicing of a kind of unit that might be useful to a place that generates a lot of food waste. And then there's also the transition planning for Denswamo. We'll be looking at how our agency adapts to the needs to manage these organic materials. And currently, I am thinking that we may want to explore that as possible change within the agency. Other possibilities include stormwater management, preparation for community disasters, because of course the refrigerators that help us make sure our food collection and redistribution programs work also help us during community disasters. And then of course we've got community cleanups and programs for the unhoused. So all of this is kind of the universe of things that we're going to be considering. Next slide, please. So as we move into the next stage, another thing, especially with so many people involved, like I said, we really want to make sure we're using your time as efficiently as possible. And so as we're exploring these things, are you interested in breaking into subgroups? Obviously, having one meeting with all of us at the same time is not going to be as efficient as it could. So we're thinking if we can break ourselves into smaller groups. This is just an initial brainstorm about possible grouping. Doesn't have to be the only way to do it, but it's one possible way. I figured people who are interested in food rescue and redistribution probably all have similar concerns. Similarly, community gardens, composting, interest in carbon farming. I'm sorry, I blended those two. Community gardens and composting. And then you've also got mulch, compost demand, and carbon farming potential. There's potential for partnerships. I wasn't sure the right way to deal with that, but each community has that we want to partner with either has an advantage or a particular interest or a particular emphasis, and we want to make sure that those are all part of the larger discussion. Animal husbandry, both from the perspective of butchering and rendering, but also from the perspective of maybe an avenue for some of those food scraps. And then, of course, we also have fire prevention and protection and the management of those scrap materials. So those are some potential subgroups. And at this point, I think I'm going to hand it back to our community organizing team and tell us how we're going to start this planning process. And I'd be happy to, that was a rush of information, and I guess I'll open it up if there are any quick questions about that onslaught.
Thanks so much, Ted. Yes, so also another one of the handouts that you received kind of summarized a lot of Ted's presentation. So the priorities are on there. The target materials and management options are on there as well, just so you have something to take and keep thinking about these things. But I do want to open it up if there are any questions, because that was a lot of great information. If you do have a question, please come up.
Should have took a drink of water before I came up here. So it's not really, well, it's kind of questions, so it's more suggestions. So what I think just off the bat, first priority, invasives, how to deal with them appropriately so you're not spreading them. Also how to systematically remove them from neighborhoods. So we've got a real problem with English ivy, tansy, Himalayan blackberry, pampas grass, and crocosmia. I've been trying and wanting to get something together to do a systematic neighborhood by neighborhood initiative so that it can be, continual, because you got to nip the regrowth in the bud and you got to do suppression. Those are the two tactics that are really good. But primarily, how do we not spread it? So I don't know, some of them I think should be burned, and I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. And then the second concern, because it's compost, animal encounters, bears, raccoons, rodents, getting into the compost. Now, the reason I'm concerned about that is because bears, they'll get in, they're really strong. So that's expensive as far as like an enclosed container. Please don't pass that off to individuals to pay for, because we already pay a lot of taxes we're not getting the services that we want, like basic safety and security as it is. So please don't pass on costs to individuals. Third, victory gardens, in addition to community group gardens like schools, churches, and other group gardens, is really important. We need that for us to get rid of our food desert situation that we have really bad in this county. So victory gardens and having diversified sources of food is kind of like, I feel like, two pieces with the animal husbandry piece, which 4-H, I know that exists. I don't know how prevalent it is, but I feel like that's a good launch pad to expanding that. I will say, please, if we could focus on humane, regenerative animal stuff, because we don't want to have more controversies about some of what's gone on in our community as far as mistreatment of animals and stuff like that.
Thank you for sharing that. Before we jump in, we are going to go into a community needs and accept comments like what was just shared. But before we do that, we want to see if there's any specific questions for Ted about SB 1383 and his presentation. Once that's closed, then we're going to open up a process to get ideas. So any questions for Ted specifically on his presentation?
So I was wondering a little bit about the record keeping aspect, because I kind of read over this earlier today and was curious on if there's templates or recommendations. Is it pounds, is it gallons?
An excellent question, and we will be working with the health department regarding that reporting. As a major food purveyor, Rumio Ano may fall into a special class, so I want to make sure that, but we'll work with you to make sure that the reporting stuff is working.
I have an observation here that there's a lot of people in the room that are involved in composting and recycling nutrients, and a lot of people, the farmers and Rumiana cheese, that have a lot of volume of organic waste. So I'd like to look at this meeting as an opportunity to cross-pollinate ideas and perhaps share resources as far as where waste products can go. So keep that in mind when you're meeting.
Any more questions for Ted on SB 1383 specifics, rules, regulations, and his presentation before we move on? All right, thank you. We are going to move on to our community input session. Aya?
Sure. So we are going to take about 20 to 30 minutes to hear from you guys about what your needs and goals are, as well as maybe what the challenges are. Just to also expand, we are going to be breaking up into a small breakout group after this to really dive into the SWOT analysis with the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But this is an opportunity, kind of as Alicia did, to share what are your goals for our community? What do you see our need is in our community? And maybe what are some of our challenges that we have, especially as a very rural community? So I welcome you all to come and share. And we are going to be using a Zoom feature to capture everybody's input through sticky notes. However, if we can't do that, I do have sticky notes to pass out. If anybody would prefer the sticky notes, I have those as well. And I also want to open that up to folks on the Zoom as well.
Hello. Hi, Angela Gray, Donato Community Food Council, managing the food forest. So I'm a garden educator in our community, and I work with a lot of people across their ages. And one of the things that I hear over and over again is, where do I get compost? I don't have the time to make it. I don't know how to make it. Where do I source it? And so I just wanted to share that with the task force and let you know there's an overwhelming need in our community for people to find good compost. And there isn't necessarily time on their hands to create it themselves. So I just wanted you to know that.
And I guess I'll drill down just a little on that because my understanding is that several dairies make composted manure available. If you can drive a truck there, they'll fill up your bed of your truck. I'm not sure the cost of that, but that is both a current thing you can do now, and it also sets the context for any compost program that we offer because it will be challenging to make a compost that is competitive with those truckloads of manure.
All right, community needs, concerns. You guys all came here today because you have ideas, so we want to hear them. What do you think Del Norte needs to be focusing on to address our waste issues, our food waste issues, our compost needs?
Well, well, I grew up in South Korea, and I just see that there are a small community enough to do. They implement this recycle food waste management for long. I think, as far as I remember, about over decades. I think so. Every apartment complex have like really recycle system in place, and they separate everything. I watch my mom's has literally zero waste. So a whole month I watching her like literally they have to pay their trash bag, but so I watching that lifestyle they built in. They have no waste and they know where to recycle, reduce, and I impressed weekly. They truck coming pick up organic material. They even separate all this food material as well. What is a compostable, what is a meat, what is not. There is some serious there is a system is in place. So I like to know that system change is always big challenge, right? Having system in place and that system is working. Perhaps we can address this in this bigger system way to look at these things. And I remember before we have a food rescue program, how difficult that is implement the program that is sustainable because we didn't have infrastructure and system in place to maintain those food rescues. So perhaps I would like to approach this a little bit more broad to that system things and begin with assessment. What is the current condition is like? What is the data that say? Another part of that I think is individual empower education piece of it to know where to compost, where to get it, what the local resources are. I see a lot of already kind of momentums and the work is in place, but individually not many aware about even waste, what is a free, the material they can go to take reuse it. Not many people aware about that. I think it's increasing that awareness and education piece is also very important, individual level. And I would like to recommend it a little bit more comprehensive approaches, this from individual level, organizational level, and also system approach. And what is the policies that enforcement piece of it going to be look like in overall? I know that there's a law passing. It's a lot of people really concerned about this enforcement pieces of it by certain time. Local jurisdictions in a small county like this, we don't really have infrastructures in place to do align with the state goal as well too. So I think it's truly a lot more education campaign and awareness and creating a system can be sustainable. I think I'd like to see a little bit more broad intersectoral collaboration is also recommended area. I'd like to see that, a little bit more collaboration. So I would like to see moving forward to see that.
Thank you, Sunny.
All right, so we've done a lot of research over the years on this topic with various different projects. In 2006, we put our on-site wastewater treatment facility, which is capable of basically giving a 99% BOD and COD reduction to the city of Crescent City, and it's all microbiological, so it's amazing. It runs basically by itself. So thinking outside the box, I think is piggybacking on her comments as something that I'd like to see a little more, because typically you hear the answer is no all the time. So like vermiculture stuff, we've looked into that. We've had groups from Chile come up, Biofiltro. We've also had the worm wrangler from New York come out, and he's like the world-renowned expert in vermiculture. Had some worm beds over in Medford for a couple of years, but just didn't have property to put it on. But our climate here is really nice for year-round for that type of thing. And also you get a return on investment with that. So, and it ties right into this composting. So you'll have the worm liquid, and then also the casings, and then also the compost material, which is the mulch. And so it's a pretty cool idea to look at. I just want to encourage some outside thinking, and I've done a lot of research on it, and I'd be happy to share that with any of you.
Real quick for clarity, did you say that you have that in operation, Joby? Go ahead, Kevin.
That triggered me because that's exactly what I'm interested in. I'm part of the permaculture group here, and my son's done a lot of research on really high quality living soils, microbially rich. And part of the challenge is, how do you take so much refuse and create really high quality living composts and then like kind of bulk organic matter. But I think it's also a good region for black soldier flies. I mean, the vermiculture kind of answers part of what you need, but heavy meat products you don't really want to put into that system so much, and we have that as well, and that could go into biodigesters. So I'm really interested in how we do think outside of the box, and if there's a subcommittee looking at that, I'd love to be on it.
Stephanie Alexander Darian. Really, I came to learn and see what you guys are going to talk about, we're going to talk about, but also to offer anything we know knowledge-wise. We've been doing a lot of composting. We put about 3,000 truckloads of compost this year on 20% of our land. And we don't call it compost until we know we've timed and temped it over 6 to 12 months. And so we're composting our manure solids with fish waste and wood shavings that we use for bedding. Any dead chickens or any other mammalian stock we compost. Our son just was in Tulare a few months ago for a composting mammal waste class, and it's working with CDFA, all those, and we've been saving data and studies. We worked with Declan's, Kevin's son, and he did some microbiology testing. We are testing our compost often to see the value of the nutrients that we are putting back in our land. We do accept tree waste that's chipped, and we have separate piles for those, and we turn those over several times a year, and then eventually mix those in our compost. So we're here to offer anything we can help some of our land, maybe as a spot to take stuff, and just work with you guys, and thank you.
Hello, Pamela Lee with the California Department of Food and Ag. I'm with the Farm to School program. So I work from Del Norte down to Lake County, and my job is to network amongst the different schools and food policy programs. The Donato Food Policy Council is getting a grant from us this year to work in the school gardens up here, and I'm really thrilled to get to work with Julie with the Del Norte Unified School District. So these are just a few suggestions that I have from seeing the North Coast region. The first piece is to educate people about how to reduce waste. We really need to reduce what's being wasted in the first place. So that can help with education. We can do school food audits, teaching the kids about how much food they're wasting. Down at Arcata Elementary School District, they're doing a great job separating, and they have vermiculture bins. They have 2 different huge dumpsters full of worms to compost those scraps. Home composting is huge. If we could give away free composting bins and educational courses so that people can really take this into their own hands, whoever can, and to do it well, because that's the way that people are going to really see how much food they're wasting instead of just throwing it into the trash. they can throw it into their composter. The Arcata, the North Coast Co-op has a huge digester. I think it digests 100 pounds a day, and they have a membership club so people can bring their compost there. So that'd be good to pair up with them, see what they're doing. There's also the Full Cycle Composting worker-owned collaborative down in Arcata, and it's a membership, a composting membership. So they ride around on bicycles with huge trailers and pick up people's compost, and then they deposit it at their various partner gardens. And then mentioned was butchering and rendering. We really need a way to process local beef so we can get that into the schools and elsewhere. So I would love to just put in a vote for looking at that. Thank you.
So we have 10 minutes left for community input. So yeah, just still keep bringing ideas of what Del Norte needs, challenges you see. Bring it on.
So does Alexander Dairy process 100% of the fish waste from the harbor, or do you guys leave some there? Okay. I was just going to ask if it seems like the harbor would be a good partner if there's fish waste that's a highly nutrient dense oil additive. And I just want to echo the sentiments previously made about community composting. I think a facility here would be a really great way to deal with all of these organic wastes.
Hello, everybody. As you can imagine, there is a large amount of waste in food service. You can't miss it. It's going to happen. We provide breakfast, lunch to 1,800 students a day across the county, from Klamath all the way to Gasky and Smith River. Inherently, there's waste. We work on reducing that by providing food to the schools based on the number of students who are going to eat. We try not to send more than they need. We try not to cook more than is needed. We hate waste. We don't like it. We feel like we're throwing away money anytime we throw away food. We've been working on food recovery since before COVID. We had actually started that process. COVID stopped us in our tracks because we couldn't have people in our kitchen and we couldn't bulk cook and serve during that time. We are back, and we bulk cook in our kitchens 2 days a week. Any pans are recovered from the school sites and then taken to the pantry and processed and redistributed to the community. I think between July and September, it was around 900 pounds was sent to the pantry. I don't know what we're at right now, but we're doing our part there. I think infrastructure for some large scale composting would be amazing. We had previously been using compostable lunch trays, but they were basically triple the cost of the mineral filled recyclable trays. So we switched just in order to save money right now, because the compostable trays were just going to the landfill like everything else. So it was kind of a trade-off financially. If we were to get back a large scale type of composting, or get that sort of infrastructure, I would switch back to the compostable trays and we would actively participate in that. I got rid of spork packs at all school sites this year. The kids were not happy about not having straws, but straws aren't necessary. Neither are the plastic wrapping. So we're working on ways to reduce our waste and what we're using. I'm looking at, there are different utensils we can get that are not plastic. They're wooden utensils. There are these cool looking plastic. They look like plastic, but it's agave. They're made from agave and they are not compostable, but they're biodegradable. So actively in my program, we're doing a lot of things to try and find ways to reduce our impact on the landfill and waste. But if we could manage to get some infrastructure to have that composting here, I think that would be a tremendous benefit. Thank you.
Hi, Emily Christian again. Christensen, sorry. My husband just went and changed it on me. Still getting used to it. Anyways, I wanted to talk. We work with daycare providers for young children at Del Norte Child Care Council, and something that they really struggle with is food waste. I actually run the food program, and I have a lot of providers who are very worrisome of being on the food program, which actually reimburses them for food, just because they see it as a food waste issue because they have to put certain amount on the plates for the kids. And so composting for them would be super awesome because they do have a minimum requirement they have to put on those plates, and to be able to compost would be super good for them, but it does lack the education. So I think that a main effort of this task force should be reaching to the home-based childcare providers, because there's a lot of them there. There's a lot of kids in Del Norte County, and they not only are they the first teachers our kiddos see, and so they also love teaching these kids too. So getting them to learn to compost, they'll teach these kids. Same thing with food waste, getting them curriculums and information on how to teach their little ones to reduce food waste would be awesome.
Hello, I'm Marina. I work at the Family Resource Center Food Bank, and we are the designated organization for food rescue. Let's see. And I would say our biggest challenge is probably staffing. We don't have any salary for staff, so we're just doing it in between other errands as we're getting ready for distributions. But it'd be amazing to see it at its full potential.
I'd like to suggest a couple things like, food resource management as part of education. So teaching our general populations about how to plan, how to manage their food resources. And I think that would be a really great skill to include a part of the task force, and also to food redistribution to amongst a certain at-risk population. Consider like unhoused populations or young children, since their food insecurity is pretty high compared to other population groups. So we consider those needs, high needs population into keep in mind that to how to tailor to meet the needs to through this effort to redistribute that edible food to rescue, to creating some system that we can ensure those unhoused population, at-risk population get access to edible food sources as well too, through system level redistribution. What does it look like? That says that like food rescue tap into community resources, like creating a community network, community volunteer groups, and how does it look like, just like a Uber kind of setup system, how we activate community assets, which means community volunteer through the redistribution system.
Hi, Melanie Cross, Community Food Council in the School Gardens. I'll be quick. I started compost bins in 2 schools right now, and teachers and students on their own are bringing their scraps in those compost bins, so the interest is there. But the way to do it properly, through the experience of other organizations that have been doing this in the school gardens, is to be present at the moments when the kids are throwing away their food. They can put it in the right bin, and it goes that day straight to the compost bin. For that, we need people that are willing to be there for them.
Hi, it's Alicia Williams again. I just remembered a really good one, mushrooms. And that's a specialty crop. And mushrooms, as you know, if you're in the forest, they grow here really easily. And that's something that I know that other communities provide logs that people can use and stuff. So anyway, but that's good for like a cottage industry too, is doing the mushrooms. And it's great for people like me that are vegan. So.
I also wanted to just open it up to our online folks. Is there anyone online that would like to comment?
I'll just share. There's an online sticky thing going on. I don't know if we could share that on the screen, but I've been trying to capture what you all are saying and categorize it. And Paula did share up here that the Yurok Tribe Food Sovereignty Program has one anaerobic digester on site, and that they're interested in composting and mulching and need training for these activities from experts. And if anyone else is online and wants to unmute, just looking for challenges, opportunities, priorities for Del Norte.
I'll talk a little bit about that. So with the anaerobic digester, I believe we have it installed. I don't think that it's up and running at this time. If Koya is online, he might be able to provide a little bit more information about that. I'm not sure if he's in this meeting or not, or if he's in person. But yeah, we do have it on site currently in Klamath at the Klamath Food Village. So we will be looking to start implementing some anaerobic digestion. So hopefully we get some materials to be able to use for that. So it would be awesome to kind of collaborate with the different organizations and for materials, especially because it's a small community. So there's a lot of materials out there, but if people are not bringing it or we don't have a good method for collecting it, then we're not going to be able to do what we need to do. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If there's anyone that wants to collaborate on using our anaerobic digester, it would be helpful.
My name's Koya. I'm the pollution prevention manager for the Yurok Tribe. And to comment on Paula's comment, Paula's my peer, and we do have one on site that we received that will be installed soon, and we have 2 more coming for Upriver. I am reluctant to make a larger offer to the community to bring stuff outside of Klamath for the moment, just because there might be an agreement being worked out with Fish and Wildlife for us to receive a whole bunch of salmon carcasses over the year, like upwards of like over 100,000 pounds worth, in order to sustain the anaerobic digester's productivity. So I'm not quite sure what the capacity on top of that will be if that agreement does happen. So, commitments on that, but we did, when we poured the cement pad for our digester in Klamath, we did pour it large enough to daisy chain a couple of them together. If the capacity was greater than what we have, or the need is greater than capacity that we have in Klamath, then we'd be able to potentially work towards purchasing another one and installing one to daisy chain to the system that we're already developing. But yeah, we're really excited to get those online and going. But we will be, it makes sense. We will be focusing on the waste from Klamath to start off with and to get things going. And we will be looking for the higher fat, higher lipid content food waste and for our digesters so that we could maximize the energy output.
All right, I am going to give it a few more minutes if anyone has anything else they would like to share before we move on to our next small breakout group activity.
Hambro had a composting facility. Is somebody here that can talk about why it didn't work out?
Joel is online. I believe he would be the best person to respond to that.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
So Hambro operated a composting facility. Originally, when the transfer station opened, we took green waste, not only from the transfer station, but also from the community. We burned some of it in our boiler and we made compost out here at our facility. The problem was the cost to manufacture was almost double to what we could sell it for. So in the end, I think we were selling cubic yard for $35, and it was costing us about $85 to produce it. So that was the biggest problem.
And if I recall, Joel, one of your challenges was the cost of actually chipping it, bringing up a tub grinder to do that periodically, and not having enough material to regularly feed a tub grinder. Is that correct?
Yeah, when you use the larger ones, they're a $500,000 piece of equipment. We would have them grind, chip everything up, make our piles. But it's just the ongoing, maintenance of turning the compost. You've got labor hours. When someone's doing their backyard, it's them and their shovel. But when you have to have an employee, a big tractor and it's diesel and all the things that go along with that in the end, when the analysis was done, we just couldn't do it any longer because it boiled down. It wasn't profitable, but not only was it not profitable, it was costing us money.
Thank you.
I had one more comment, and this is more of a threat in the SWAT thing, is animals eating the compost becoming a pest problem. Thinking first, bears were already mentioned as being strong and able to tear into compost, but rats are a problem that everyone in Crescent City is familiar with, and there's also raccoons and other things. So it would be good in the breakout groups to hear what the various composting elements in the room here that are all very dedicated. How do we deal with varmints getting into the material? Just something that I'd be looking for answers to, and I think it would be a good thing to share knowledge about this.
Yeah, I think that leads us right into our next activity, which is a SWOT analysis to really look a little bit deeper and have some discussions in small groups. So we are going to be just kind of turning around and breaking up into groups of 3 or 4 people. And I have clipboards for everyone. I don't know if you can switch to the slide, please. Thank you. All right. So just a raise of hands. Who's done a SWOT analysis before? They're often used in strategic planning to get an idea of kind of where our community is at, and to identify and this SWOT is going to be used to identify key factors that are affecting our ability to meet SB 1383 compliance and or to improve organic waste management. So just break into small groups. If it just means like turning around, we just want to make sure that you all have time to have some discussion. And I've created some prompts here for strengths, weaknesses, what programs or initiatives are currently working well, who are the key stakeholders and leaders driving the success, and what unique assets does our community have. When it comes to weaknesses, we're looking at maybe what gaps exist, what the limitations of our rural community might be, and then also what the financial resource constraints are, as we just were hearing.
So you're going to break into groups of 3 or 4, and then we'll come around and give you one clipboard for your group. And we're basically going to take about 15, 20 minutes. So take about 5 minutes for each one, and just as a group brainstorm our strengths, our weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then we're going to come back together. So Pat's coming around, and thanks. And for online, I am going to set up an online session for you.
I just have a quick question. I know SB 1383 came out quite a while ago. I think it was like in 2017 or something like that. When are we supposed to start instituting it? Like when are we supposed to keep things from getting in the landfill, and how is that going to be measured?
Hey, Ted. We have a few questions that you would be able to answer. So Robin was talking about like for the stores, the restaurants, that are food companies, things like that. You know, there has to be some sort of release of liability. Are we donating this to composting? Are we donating this to their program?
That's part of the overview there. Tier 1 is 2 tiers and tier 2 generates.
Like the big, the tier 1 and tier 2?
Exactly. So the other stuff is lower priority, it's less fun. So the short of it is you can donate food materials to food rescue groups and the liability is come back.
We've been trying to learn this.
But, you know, special consideration.
Like the grocery store, the food, right now it's Best Buy.
I can tell you, my wife looks at the date and says, "Oh, this is obviously today's today."
I buy it because it's on sale.
It just seems to me like in mass, those generate some in comparison to typical household. In that really have much responsibility.
Yeah, we want to be against ranch too.
Oh, yeah. Short hair. Or the other system that I think is possible, essentially you kind of get we might be able to start
It would have to be something that was maintained. I even think about it, like it's just not going to be hygienic. Hot goo in the back that we throw stuff into.
That's part of what we try to do. Yeah. That has to be part of the plan. That's how you're going to get through it. Sometimes you're going to have
And then I can order. So, you want to ride?
I didn't want to say it out loud.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because I work from Delmar.
So that's what you read. USDA, you're USDA, right? No, I'm with the state. Yeah. I'm the same one with straight. Well, that's, you know,
the driver. My question
I can't remember what the acronym stands for. Yeah.
But do good dairy packaging.
Well, it's part of, well, it's not part of our, but to me, it's part of our story. Like, we're all doing our fracking well here. But I would love to find the best way to tell that story.
We're almost done.
Like the brush. Yeah, I get my.
I hope you all are having some great discussion. I wanted to give a 5-minute warning that we'll be coming back together in 5 minutes. All right, it sounds like there's some really good conversations happening, but I am going to have you all finish up and we're going to come back together as a group. All right. So if you are still holding the clipboard, you are the lucky one that gets to share with the rest of the group. So we would like to just hear at least one from each section, one strength, weakness, threat, or opportunity from each group. If there are 2 or 3 that you really absolutely need to share, you can, but we're trying to keep it brief and respect everybody's time. So if one person from each group can line up and share some of the takeaways from this activity.
Just one from each group.
Hey, everybody. So our group had a really great discussion, and we talked about some weaknesses. I'm going to jump around. So one of the weaknesses we talked about is infrastructure. Like the school district would love to be able to have trays that they can wash, but they can't even buy a dishwasher because they don't have the electricity in the building, so they can't add any equipment to the building. So that's physical infrastructure. And then also more education that reinforces this throughout the entire lifespan, because we do these one-off trainings and talk about composting once or food recovery once, but reinforcing that is a weakness. In opportunities, we talked about including generational training, so not just training kids in schools, but also making sure that we're training the entire family on food recovery or on composting. And then we also talked about the opportunity for social change. You know, this is a big change for people, for lots of people in our community. Then we moved on to threats. Bears are a threat. Our social climate is a threat. You know, this is a new big change. And a lot of people see it as maybe something that another group might do, you dang hippies. Funding can also be a threat in this, right? Complacency, just a general malaise, and lack of interest. And then let's see, for strengths is what we landed on at the very end. We think that one of the things that is a big strength is just the fact that this conversation is happening right now with all of these people in this room together showing up, and that there are key stakeholders here. And then also our community is a strength. You know, we have a tendency to set stuff aside when it really matters and come together to work on something that benefits our whole community. And that's not something we see everywhere. Food recovery is working well, and school gardens are working well.
I think something that's really great about these conversations is it seems like a lot of people are talking about very similar things. So I'm probably going to be repeating a little bit of what Angela was just sharing. But so I'm just going to kind of go across from left to right. So starting with the strengths, we talked about the food rescue program and really just the passion that this community has and for the want of having more composting and recycling of those resources. And also it makes the community more resilient as well as we're moving into different types of climate changes and seasonal changes as well as we're starting to notice. Some of the weaknesses that we discussed is just outreach and awareness. And I think that was a really great point that Ange made. Like we might have one kind of workshop or training and then that's it. And so something that we talked about as an opportunity is like if there is a composting system at a community garden, at a school, or just at any kind of community drop-off, having like a really simple, easy to read and understand signage so you're not faced with that challenge of wondering what can and cannot go into those composting systems. And so again, a weakness is like a lack of a collection, like a community collection facility. I know that there are small places like the community gardens and schools where that's happening, but as a community, as a whole, if there's like an area even just for green waste for people to be able to drop off, I know that is a big challenge. in the Klamath community is just not having somewhere for it to go. So if there's somewhere where people can go and drop off at least green waste and then food waste as the next step, that would be really great. And then the threats, we're also talking about animals and having secure composting spaces where we might not face those challenges. And then also, you know, the lack of community pickup space. So that's what we have. Thank you.
So we also talked a lot about education and education from, you know, little tiny children to all the way through the lifespan. And we also talked about how that could also be a threat, because if we are framing the benefits of something like this in terms of the benefits for the environment, but a certain demographic or person doesn't care about that, or, you know, denies certain aspects of that, it's really important to frame it for all different people and ways that it can benefit their life. Like, what is the economic benefit as well, not just the environmental benefit. We also talked about one of our strengths is that, you know, we have a representative from the school district here who, you know, wants to see this expand. And we also had questions about, you know, where are the representatives from the casinos and the prison, the hotels, the restaurants, hospitals, elder homes, and their food waste. And I think that really ties into that educational piece of kind of throwing a wide net of what are the benefits and how does this benefit all different sorts of people and organizations.
So we echo everything that was said already, and I'll just read pieces that haven't been mentioned yet with the strengths. Well, we think that Donato Food Policy Council is a huge strength to this community, and specifically with food recovery and then food pantry cooking classes and letting people have choice when they're picking out their foods. That way, that leads to less waste. Weaknesses, not having a commercial composting facility is a weakness. Opportunities, one of our members had lived in Medford, Oregon, and they have a biomass facility that produces energy from the waste. And then as far as threats go, just resistance to change in general. And then rendering plants can have a really bad smell. So if we do want to move in that direction, to make sure that it's well placed. Thank you.
I think that we were talking about some of the strengths. I would say one of the biggest ones I would say is that the tier 1 and tier 2 groups have been identified and partnered with to a degree. I think the willingness of local businesses and residences to participate in this is a strength. Some of the weaknesses, I think sometimes it's an uphill battle to educate the local environment about some things like composting. It traditionally, I don't think has been super mainstream. I think it seems, you know, kind of coming out of nowhere to a lot of people. I think sometimes in this rural area, costs, if there's costs involved in these programs, I think there's going to be some resistance there. I think opportunities, obviously, if we can get, you know, grants or if a community biodigester can be developed. If there's a process that can create revenue, I think obviously that would be a great opportunity. I think showing results in the local community to generate enthusiasm amongst local residents. Some of the threats, again, the downsides of biological processes, odor that's been mentioned, and just where the location of any facilities to be built would be located. I think those are some things to consider. So.
So the discussion we had in our group at the corner there, so it's kind of similar what we share most of it. I just want to highlight a few things that hasn't been touched. with it. We just touch base with is a like as a strength is our community is small enough can be a strength and can be a weakness as well too. The strength would be a small enough to connection can be point made and a closeness involved into it. It can be leveraging that strength we have established already. And then also funding can both, we talk about both strength and weaknesses. The strength means we have a funding right now made allow do this work is going, this is a great strength. And the community partners, we talk about, a little bit about that strength. Yeah, and I think that's really, really kind of funding I just mentioned with the types of funding. Often the funding's coming in is not allow us enough to actually implement operational types of it. Maybe further, this is an opportunity, but again, to look it into further more, looking in fund to actually do something with this. Often that energy is generated in the beginning, we don't really see the outcome all the way sustained effort to see that. They're kind of like looking into that strength and both overlap as an weaknesses as well too. And we touch base about also environmental factors of water contamination, pesticide issues in the soil, and how to address it is more biochar or, and digester is an opportunity can be expensive, but yet that's going to be also an opportunity looking into some of the innovation approach as well to address. And also mitigation effort, we talk about it by doing it to biocleaning, biological cleaning kind of effort to using, again, some innovational technology using biology, organic material breakdown, creating the whole, cleaning system as well too. And also we talk about the challenges of the recycling. So when one time we sorted through all different kind of plastic, by the numbers and colors and glass, and all this effort has made one time, and now we just all mix it all together, and people unaware about that, or aware that process in recycling in alone, maybe revisit about the recycling system again to allow the recycling is actually can be done all across in our community, including restaurant. So, and some restaurant has, some does not. So maybe just inconsistency across even recycling, maybe revisit to look at as that too. And we also touch base a little bit about opportunity about financial incentive. Maybe one of the reasons why people have not alone have a community buy-in about composting, and even we felt resistance of it because we felt that public think it is make it difficult and hard and costly and expensive. Maybe address it as an identity. So maybe pilot project to launching some of the really easy to do and doable things to also creating a mechanism, not only make it easy, but also to economically benefit for them, like a $5 per each bucket or something like that. And we have as a strength, and we have Alexander there, we have a large volume of processing, but again, system challenges, how to connecting point to collecting, transport to make sure all full circle of that make it possible. Look into a little bit more infrastructure building and capacity through the community partnership, and also to system level approaches, maybe we can be a beneficial too.
All right, was that all of the groups? Okay. And then real quick, if you have a clipboard and you would like to gather those up with the notes that you took. So if you could turn those in up here, that would be great. And while Alicia's coming up, I also have a sign-in sheet. If you guys have not signed in, I would really appreciate you taking a moment to sign in.
Stephanie made me come up here. And so I'm tired too, Stephanie. So the strengths that Greg was there too. Thank you, Greg. And so strengths that we came up with, which Alexander already has some great established partnerships. So for their ready to use compost, it's available at Hemmingson, where you can also get gravel products. She and her operation have meat waste that goes to feed the Yurok, I think it's called a restoration program, which is awesome. They freeze it and they use it. And then the chicken poop goes to Ocean Air. I believe they just use it for their own purposes. I'm not sure. You'd have to ask them. And then they are open, which she already said, to taking more waste products. And she said they had land available and everything. But she said she didn't want to take anybody else's opportunity. So just remember her as kind of a last option, I guess. So this is great because we can build off these existing connections for expansion. The weaknesses that we discussed were regarding, okay, so bones, that came up. And we were talking about butchery because there's like, there's marrow, and then you can smoke byproduct for dogs and whatnot. And then I think you can use it for char for the odor, maybe. I'm not sure if the carbon with bones, but I thought there was something like that. So we were talking about that. Oh, and she said that usually those kind of products would not be something that you could maybe have like a market local because we're small, so that there might be some, I guess, logistical cost or something involved. So that's falling under weakness. The other thing that I mentioned, and I think other people have mentioned, is the very big need for a community guide or directory. I strongly feel it should be printed and direct mailed. I've been wanting that so much for like just in general, but like obviously we have special money for this, so we could have a special one just around these subject matter. Opportunities. Okay, rabbits. So I brought up rabbits because the manure piece, and that one is you can immediately use it without aging. And then that gives you a revenue source. And then also additionally, a meat revenue source. It's also a small operation that people can do at their houses, and children can do 4-H and stuff like that. Other opportunities, I don't know. Oh, opportunities probably meaning like we're not utilizing them well. Maybe barn cats, make sure they're wild and you're not feeding them, because if you're not feeding them, they actually go out and they reduce the rodent risk to that are being attracted by compost and maybe feed sources that you already have on your property. So barn cats, wild cats. And then she put animal processing facilities, but I don't know. I don't have any more details on that. And then threats. Okay, so some stuff that came up was that when you offer products, then sometimes you're made to do like reporting processes that can be timely, and you're already busy because you're a business person or whatever. So that's something to avoid. Permit fees and other fees can be a problem to having these things happen. If you're going to do that, I would say cover the cost with the tax money that you already get off of us and the grant money that you get for programs. And then starlings came up. They get a lot of starlings because of the feed, the grain feed, and they roost in the trees. And I've noticed that starlings are a problem. They're an invasive bird. So that's that.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your feedback and collaborative efforts and working together and sharing back. So at this point, we are almost to the top of the hour. We only have 11 minutes left. So if we can share the slides, perfect. So we kind of shared this at the beginning of the meeting. We are having, this is the first of 6 meetings, so there will be 5 other meetings. I think that I wanted to have a little discussion about how to get others to these meetings. I feel like we had a really great turnout today. I'm super excited that you guys all showed up. And maybe if there's anyone that you think might need to be here, or invite them. I think just by inviting folks and us reaching out to our community, we can bring more people together. I did want to review briefly the topics for our next meeting, which is Community Meeting 2. So we will be sharing the findings from this meeting, taking those SWOT analyses and really drawing out what the priorities are going to be. We'll be presenting some facility options, some food waste collection strategies, as well as evaluating options and the feasibility of the options. And then, of course, gathering community input on the priorities that we've established. We have discussed developing subcommittees. So there's a list here of some potential subcommittees or subgroups. And if we go to the next slide, there is a QR code on the slide with a evaluation survey for this meeting. As Ted mentioned, we don't want to be wasting your time. So this is a mix of letting us know how we did with this meeting, and then also showing your interest that you may have in joining a subgroup. We've also talked about potentially having meetings at other areas around the county, just to make it accessible for those that live in Klamath and Gasky and Smith River. So there's a question in there that asks if you would be interested in going to meetings around the county. And yeah, please, we really want to continue this collaboration and reach out to us if you have questions. Is there anything else that we want to? I don't know if you want to go back.
I do not believe that we've selected a meeting date for the next meeting. So chances are you will receive a doodle poll that may have follow-up questions, but certainly we'll focus on when is a good time for meeting for you so that we can set the date for the next meeting. Really want to thank each of you for coming today, taking your time, sharing your ideas. This is what makes a community process work. You showing up. Thank you.
And with that, I reiterate Ted's and Aya's thanks for showing up and giving your input. It was really valuable. I feel it was a good start to this process. I do note that lacking in our attendance are representatives from the big box stores and from restaurants. So we'll have to be making some effort to reach out to those people and have them included in the conversation. With that, if there are no further comments, I will adjourn this meeting of the Solid Waste Task Force.
Just to note, those of you who are looking at the agenda, the next meeting of the Solid Waste Task Force will be Thursday, February 20th at the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority conference room. That meeting will not be discussing this planning process. That's going to be a completely different agenda, focusing on the 5-year review of our other recycling programs. So we will be setting the date for this next meeting of this group sometime probably March-ish, but we will be sending out a doodle poll looking for your input about the best time you'd be available to meet. Thank you.
And again, if you didn't get to sign up or sign in, please take a moment to sign in. Thank you so much, everyone.